A historical analysis of child displacement and institutional care in America, 1853 present. The history of child welfare in the United States is a complex narrative defined by a transition from informal community placing out to a massive industrialized system of migration and institutionalization. This evolution, while born from the desperate poverty of the 19th century urban core, would eventually face profound scrutiny regarding the exploitation and safety of the children it claimed to protect. At the genesis of the orphan train movement, 1853-1929. In the mid-19th century, New York City faced a crisis of unprecedented proportions. By the 1850s, an estimated 30,000 homeless or neglected children, often derided as street Arabs, street urchins, or the dangerous classes, inhabited the city's slums. In response, Minister Charles Loring Brace founded the Children's Aid Society in 1853. Brace's philosophy was rooted in the belief that the Christian farm family of the American Midwest was the ideal environment to reform and rescue these children from urban vice. This gave rise to the orphan train movement, the largest mass migration of children in American history. Over a 76-year period, 1853 and 1929, approximately 250,000 children were transported via rail from the East Coast to the Midwest and South, the reality of the placing out system. While framed as a benevolent mission, the reality for many children was harrowing. Ethnic demographics. Approximately 1 in 4 of these children were of Irish descent. Selection process. Upon arrival in rural towns, children were often displayed on hastily constructed stages. Prospective guardians would inspect them, feeling their muscles and checking their teeth, reminiscent of livestock auctions. Labor and indenture. Abolitionists of the era feared the trains served as an extension of slavery. Many children were not adopted in the modern sense, but were treated as indentured servants or farm laborers with few rights. Abuse and isolation. Contact with biological families was strictly discouraged. Reports of sexual abuse, malnourishment, and overwork were prevalent, leading many children to flee their new homes. Ecclesiastical intervention. The New York Foundling Hospital. By the 1870s, the Catholic Church grew concerned that Catholic children were being placed in Protestant homes and stripped of their faith. In response, Sister Mary Irene Fitzgibbon, supported by Archbishop John McCloskey, established the New York Foundling Asylum in 1809. The demand was immediate. On its first night, the asylum received 1 infant. By the end of the first month, 45 more followed. To manage the influx, the sisters utilized a modernized version of the foundling wheel, or rota dei proietti. This device, which dates back to a 12th century papal bull by Pope Innocent III, allowed mothers to anonymously deposit infants into a revolving compartment in the building's wall. The church's placing out program operated with specific cultural nuances. Selection via clergy. Priests along rail routes would announce available children during Mass. Parishioners could order children based on specific physical traits, gender, hair, and eye color. Documentation. Children often lacked birth certificates, with baptismal records serving as their only legal identification. They were typically released from their indenture at age 18. The evolution of modern foster care and systemic critique. The efforts of Charles Loring Brace eventually evolved into the modern foster care system. The Children's Aid Society pioneered concurrent planning, a model that became the foundation for the Federal Adoption and Safe Families Act of 1997. However, as the system grew into a multi-billion-dollar bureaucratic entity, allegations of corruption and child harvesting emerged, the Schaefer allegations and legislative pushback. former Georgia State Senator Nancy Schaefer became one of the most vocal critics of Child Protective Services, CPS. She alleged that the system incentivized the removal of children from poor families through federal bonuses granted to states for every child adopted out of foster care. Schaefer's research indicated that children in state care were statistically more likely to suffer abuse than those in the general population. Social workers occasionally fabricated evidence to justify removals for financial gain. In 2010, Schaefer and her husband were found dead in their home. While ruled a murder-suicide by authorities, the verdict remains highly contested by her supporters who cite her ongoing investigations into CPS corruption. 4. Institutional failures and the Finders controversy. The late 20th century saw the emergence of disturbing anomalies within the child welfare and intelligence landscapes. In 1987, police in Tallahassee, Florida, arrested members of a Washington, D.C.-based group known as the Finders. The investigation uncovered a warehouse containing ritualistic materials, jars of biological waste, and instructions for obtaining children. However, the Metropolitan Police Department and Customs Service reportedly halted the investigation after it was labeled a CIA internal matter involving national security. The leader of the group, Marion Petty, had documented links to the intelligence community, and the case remains a focal point for researchers investigating institutional child exploitation. The contemporary crisis, Penn State, and beyond, the 2011 Jerry Sandusky scandal at Penn State University highlighted the vulnerability of at-risk youth within nonprofit frameworks. Sandusky's Second Mile Foundation, though lauded as a point of light by the federal government, served as a conduit for the abuse of young boys for over 15 years. The historical record of this case is marked by significant anomalies. Ray Gricar, the district attorney who first investigated Sandusky in 2005, disappeared mysteriously. His laptop was later found in a river with the hard drive missing. Institutional silence. Despite reports of abuse occurring in public university facilities, the culture of silence within the NCAA and university leadership allowed the victimization to continue for decades. Chronological summary of major milestones. Year, event, significance. Found 3. Founding of Children's Aid Society. Inception of the Orphan Train movement. 1869. NY Foundling Hospital opens. Catholic response to child displacement. 9. Final Orphan Train. End of the mass migration. The concept of child harvesting in the American child welfare context refers to the systemic and often incentivized removal of children from their families to sustain a multi-billion-dollar bureaucratic industry. This phenomenon is viewed by critics as the modern evolution of the 19th century orphan trains, shifting from a system of rural labor placing out to one of federalized, legalized kidnapping for profit. The legislative catalyst. The 1997 Adoption and Safe Families Act, ASFA. While child welfare began as a charitable endeavor, it was transformed into a fiscal engine by the Adoption and Safe Families Act, ASFA, signed into law in 1990. This legislation fundamentally shifted the priority of state agencies from family reunification to expedited permanency. Adoption. The incentive structure. To encourage states to move children out of foster care more quickly, the federal government established a bonus system. Under Section 473A of the Social Security Act, states receive cash payments for every child adopted out of foster care that exceeds a specific baseline. $4,000 for every standard adoption, $6,000 to $8,000 for special needs adoptions, which often includes any child over a certain age or from a sibling group. 2. The harvesting mechanism. Creating the product. Critics like the late Georgia State Senator Nancy Schaefer argued that these financial incentives created a predatory environment. Because states must meet or exceed their previous year's adoption numbers to receive the full bonuses, there is an inherent pressure to find new children enter the system. Targeting the vulnerable. Statistics show that poor parents are disproportionately targeted. Lacking the resources to hire private legal counsel, these families are often unable to fight against boilerplate allegations of neglect, which can be as vague as inadequate housing or failure to protect. The role of concurrent planning. This practice allows agencies to work on an adoption plan for a child. At the same time, they are supposedly working toward reunifying that child with their birth parents. In practice, this often means the child is already being bonded to a potential adoptive family, while the biological parents are still struggling to meet state-mandated requirements. 3. The foster care industrial complex. The term harvesting also applies to the vast network of secondary industries that profit from children being in state custody. This complex includes private adoption agencies. These entities often receive state contracts to facilitate the placing of children, essentially acting as brokers. Psychotropic drug profits. As noted in the provided text, foster children are frequently prescribed powerful psychotropic medications at rates significantly higher than the general population. This creates a steady stream of revenue for pharmaceutical companies and specialized mental health facilities. Legal and administrative fees. From court-appointed guardians to state-funded social workers, thousands of jobs depend on the constant flow of children into the system. 4. Historical parallels. State-sanctioned removals. The harvesting of children is not a new phenomenon in Western history. It follows a dark pattern of state-sponsored displacement, the stolen generations. In Australia, Indigenous children were removed from their families to civilize them, the Home Children UK. Over 100,000 children were sent from the UK to Canada and Australia for better lives, only to be used as unpaid domestic and farm labor. The Orphan Trains, USA. As described previously, the removal of 250,000 children to serve as labor for Midwestern farmers set the precedent for viewing displaced children as a resource for the state, v. the whistleblower's legacy. Senator Nancy Schaefer's 2007 report, The Corrupt Business of Child Protective Services, remains the definitive critique of this system. She alleged that CPS had become a protected empire that hides behind confidentiality laws to mask the fabrication of evidence. Her research suggested that the system was no longer about protecting children from monsters, but about separating families to keep federal slush funds flowing. The Department of Child Protective Services has become a protected empire, built on taking children and separating families. Poor parents are targeted because they do not have the wherewithal to hire lawyers and fight the system. Senator Nancy Schaefer, Comparison of Orphan Trains versus Modern CPS. Feature, Orphan Trains, 1853 to 1929. Modern System, 1990 to present. Primary goal, rural labor, religious reform, federal bonuses, permanency, justification, saving street urchins, safe from neglect, poverty, and financial base.
(1853), New York is drowning in the slums. 30,000 street Arabs are waiting for the help to come. Charles Bray's got a plan, said the city is a vice. Send them to the Midwest, pay a heavy labor price. It's the orphan train movement, $250,000 on the track. Once they board the locomotive, ain't no looking back. 1 in 4 are Irish, leaving Brooklyn for the corn. Stripped of every record and the names that they were born. Stays in rural towns, yeah, they put them on display. Like livestock at an auction, checking teeth along the way. Muscle for the harvest, just a farmhand in a cage. Indenture is the contract till they reach the legal age. The sisters saw the Protestant reform as a threat. Built a fountain wheel for the babies they could get. Anonymous deposits in a hole inside the wall. The church became the mother for the children in the fall. From the iron rails to the modern day fights, an industrial system, mile after mile. They call it a rescue, but it's looking like a trade. From the orphan trains to the bonuses they paid, it's a harvest of the hopeful, a cycle of the lost. Separating families, never minding what it costs. Identity erased in a bureaucratic sea. From the 18th century to the land of the free. The game changed in '97, asked for was the bill. Shifted focus from the family to the treasury till reunification died. Expedited is the word, a multi-billion-dollar engine that is seldom ever heard. 4,000 for a standard, 6,000 for the special. Federal bonuses making states act extra predatory and extra level. Nancy Schaefer blew the whistle, said the empire is protected, fabricating evidence so the kids can be collected. Child harvesting for profit, targeting the poor. Social workers knocking, pushing through the front door. She called it legal kidnapping for the title for E. Then she's found dead in her home, a tragic mystery. A murder-suicide is what the official records say, but her supporters claim she knew too much about the play. The system's got a hunger that it's looking to appease, while mothers beg for mercy on their overworked knees. From the iron rails to the modern day file, it's an industrial system, mile after mile. They call it a rescue, but it's looking like a trade. From the orphan trains to the bonuses they paid, it's a harvest of the hopeful, a cycle of the lost. Separating families, never minding what it costs. Identity erased in a bureaucratic sea. From the 19th century to the land of the free. The culture of silence, the shadows get deeper when you look at Tallahassee. The finders in a warehouse, things are looking pretty nasty. Rituals and instructions on how to get a kid, but the CIA stepped in and kept the secrets all hid. National security, the investigation stalled, while the leaders had the links to the intelligence appalled. Moved to Happy Valley where the second mile would run, a point of light foundation for a monster's twisted fun. Sandusky in the showers, 15 years of the abuse, while the Nisi got away and the leaders made every excuse. Ray Ricard took the case, then he vanished in the air. Laptop in the river, but the hard drive wasn't there. A culture of silence in the halls of the elite, leaving at-risk youth to the wolves on the street. From the train to the foster home, the story's still the same. A child is just a number in a cold systemic game. From the iron rails to the modern day file, it's an industrial system, mile after mile. They call it a rescue, but it's looking like a trade. From the orphan trains to the bonuses they're paid, it's a harvest of the hopeful, a cycle of the lost. Separating families, never minding what it costs. Identity erased in a bureaucratic sea. From the 19th century to the land of the free.